She's up to speed now, boys.
What is happening, BattleBots fans? Hardcore Kid here with another smashing edition of the Hardcore Podcast. To my left, donning his new monsoon t-shirt, I have Otaku Nate.
It's noon. As in, literally, it's noon. We're recording this at noon time. Well, 10 after noon, but that's not exactly high noon, but that's neither here nor there.
Are you high? Are you high?
How high?
Higher than the sky. Yep. So we have some special guests here, some more Roboteers who competed in Friday's episode.
Oh, what an episode it was.
Yeah, it was the Desperado Tournament. Teams competing to get that last wild card spot in the best of 16. And we actually have two members of Team Valkyrie. We have the team captain, Leanne Cushing.
And we have a guy whose name makes him sound like he was born to be a hockey goalie, Crease.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
Hey.
And who else do we got? We got another guest, don't we?
Oh, yes. You see, Ed Robinson is not the only pirate we've had on this show. We now have the pirate for this year's BattleBots. He is looking to conquer the sea of robot combat with his machine, Kraken. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Spurk.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Arr, how you doing, matey?
I'm doing wonderful. It's hot here today, so we're in the shade.
Hey, join the club.
I was at a wedding yesterday, and we were in a tent. Holy mackerel, it had to be 100 degrees in there. Mm-hmm. The coolest room was the bathroom.
The worst kind of heat is when it's humid, when it's muggy. Like, it's suffocating. Like, I don't mind the heat as long as it's below 90, but, like, when you add in all the humidity, it just becomes unbearable.
How hot was the BattleBot studio?
It was warm in the day, but at night the temperature dropped significantly, and it was quite cold.
Wasn't cold enough to freeze up pneumatics, was it?
No.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, this isn't Robot Wars.
Back in Los Angeles, which is good enough. There was only really one really hot day, especially compared to the last season.
The Desperado day was pretty hot.
That was a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have our team flight suits on, and it was unbearable.
Popped up for the second match.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be talking about the Desperado Tournament. This was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 robot tournament with some teams who either didn't get enough TV time or didn't have enough matches yet, and they wanted to get a space for them to automatically qualify for the top 16. It's kind of like the New Blood tournament from Robot Wars, where you're competing.
Oh God, no! Don't remind me of that.
Hey, the New Blood tournament was the first UK tournament I ever watched. When I first started watching Tech TV and I see all these British guys and I'm like, who are these people? Where's Mick Foley?
Oh God, the New Blood. Well, at least it's better than the WCW New Blood.
Yeah, but so this episode, they had some decent matches here, and
decent. There were some great fights.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the Valkyrie Hypothermia and the Gigabyte Double Dutch matches only had highlights, but I really hope that they show them in full on the Science Channel.
We can only hope. So, before we continue forward, I want to know what your guys' thoughts were on this whole Desperado tournament, because Miles said that they're trying new things this season. So, how did you react when this idea was announced in the pits?
Well, I think that we kind of just immediately were like, all right, let's go, because we were kind of showing that, like, we got the bugs out of our robot, and we knew at, like, worst case scenario, we would, lose a bunch of spare parts. Best case scenario, we'd be able to prove to the producers we weren't going to continue to have buggy issues, and we could actually, like, get in there and fight well.
Yeah, because we were a new robot, we learned something after every fight, and so our robot got better and better, and so we could prove that with the Desperado tournament.
Yeah.
Matt, what was your response to this?
Yeah, we were in the exact same boat. Our first 2 matches were abominations, to put it mildly.
You got screwed over in your second fight.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
That was a radio glitch, and I couldn't back up until I fired the weapon. And so once I was stuck on the screws, I couldn't back up. And as soon as I fired the weapon, I could back up. But now I'm clamped on the screws. So we had 2 bad losses on our record. So after the second match, we were really down on ourselves. The whole team was down. And then the producers kind of threw out this bone that there's this Desperado tournament. We didn't think twice. I mean, we finally, we had a shot, and we felt we had a good chance because we had 2 robots. We had a pretty big team, and so it felt we could have cycled through the robots and done well. We just kind of made one small mistake, and Donald's a great driver, and he took advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the one lesson you're going to take away from tonight's episode. You cannot outdrive Don Hudson.
Just like you can't flip over overkill.
Yes, you can.
You can, but he's still gonna move. So, I guess we'll get started with the matches. The first match was the giant flipper, straight from Canada, Lucky, versus the totally not from Robot Wars Gemini, the little cluster bots. And I thought this was a fun match.
Oh, this was tons of fun. Like, clusterbot matches, to me, are always gonna be fun. Simply because, we've got these 2 little robots zipping and zooming across the arena, and, when you've got them in there with a big heavy, one of them is gonna go flying.
And flying they did.
Mm-hmm. Lucky got some really good flips in, and then its flipper got bent.
Yeah, I think one of the hits from the spinners might have knocked it out of alignment.
Yeah, that's what happened.
There were some points in this match where, I think Lucky was being a little too holding back too much.
Well, the thing with that is because they're both spinners. If you go after one, the other one is going to chase you. It's a pincer attack.
Yeah, and I think, but as soon as I saw Lucky's flipper go up, I thought, oh no, they're going to lose this. But then Gemini's discs, I believe they crashed into each other.
Yes, they did.
And they ended up breaking their weapons.
Them.
Yeah.
Just like how the UK Gemini went out.
Yeah. I am happy that Lucky won.
Mm-hmm.
You could say they were lucky in a way, because I have seen Lucky compete at Robo Games, and it's a really solid machine. It's just a complete tank with a big flipper on the front, and they actually managed to beat Sewer Snake, which is no mean feat.
What were your thoughts on this match? Matt, you go first.
I felt this one kind of went the way I would expect. Lucky was, 2 tables behind us, so we knew them kind of past their robot frequently. That it's a quality robot, quality team. It's been tried and true, tested a lot. So I felt, anytime you have a heavier robot, you're going to have the advantage. You're fighting a robot half your weight. You're going to be able to outdrive it or outpush it, I should say. And the big titanium wedges on the front, I didn't think Gemini would be able to damage them. And I thought Lucky, he was the higher seed in that match for a reason.
How about you, Leanne?
Well, firstly, because we were so busy running around and debugging crap beforehand, I actually didn't get to see any of Gemini's previous fights. So that was alone, I was pretty stoked on that. And yeah, similarly, I figured Lucky would have it just because, again, yeah, if you're just stuck with shoving, you have 2 times the weight versus 1 time the weight. And also, what you did get to see was a lot of accidental friendly fire, and that never does it good.
Yep.
Well, that's as we saw with the 4. No, go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say one of the things that our team says a lot is that with multi-bots, friendly fire is always turned on no matter what you do, and I've seen that a couple times in BattleBots this year.
Yeah, that happened in the 4 Horsemen's match when one of them took out a Buttercup.
Rip. Exactly.
Yeah, that's funny.
So Lucky gets the win in a barn burner.
Yeah, it really could have gone either way, I think, because both Robot's weapons worked, but
Lucky got one of its wheels knocked off, and I thought, oh god, Lucky, you can do so much better than this. I believe in you.
And they managed to get it out in the end.
Squeak one out for Lucky.
And they're up all night to get lucky, am I right?
That was bad, and you should feel bad.
Hey, just be thankful I didn't play that song at the beginning.
Hey, I like Daft Punk.
They're hit and miss.
Hit and miss, you're a jerk.
They're up all night to get some. We're up all night for good fun.
Anyway, let's go on to the next battle.
All right.
And that is Kraken versus Lockjaw. Matt, as always, we let our guests have the floor, so talk us through it.
Yeah, we started this one kind of nervous. We're facing Donald Hudson. He's a great driver, very experienced, knows what he's doing, tried and true. Equipment, his drive systems is always, he never seems to have a drive issue except for his Bronco match, obviously.
Yeah.
So we went this match a little bit nervous, a little bit concerned about what he was going to bring to the table. We kind of talked to some of the other builders. We talked to Yeti, and he said, yeah, in his last match against Endgame, or a match against Endgame, he got his fork stuck in the floor. So he said, you may want to try and use the saws to make him a little bit nervous about coming after you. So we started trying to get over near the saws and make Donald think twice about coming after us. And that strategy lasted about 5 seconds, and then keep the nose pointed towards Lockjaw and go. And we got a nice bite on him right at the very beginning.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, oh man, he's got him. This could be a big upset.
Yeah, there were some good grabs in this match. The one that really got me was when you grabbed onto the wheel and it almost looked like it was about to come right off.
Well, yeah, like you punctured one of his tires. Before we go on any further, how does the Crusher work? Because I read that it's powered by an airbag, and I'm curious as to how that's supposed to work. The only thing I know about airbags is that you're not supposed to put one in the microwave.
Yeah, so in this case, when people hear airbag, they think of like a car airbag and a steering wheel, and that's not accurate. It's more like it's technically called a heavy lift bag, and
like
so they use
like
these,
an air bladder.
Yeah,
No, it's
basically
it's
what it is. Yeah, they use them. The fire department uses them if they have a vehicle that gets rolled over and there's a victim trapped under the car. They can actually put a post through the windows of the car, and they put this airbag underneath, and actually they can lift cars with them.
I've seen them used.
Yeah, so they have a huge amount of strength, and they take up very, very small areas. So our bag's 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's able to produce 20,000 pounds of force. So the problem with them is, as the bag has to inflate, the further the bag has to inflate, the less force you get out of the jaw. So the key is to try and get them in the jaw and all the way up in the jaw as far as possible, so you're biting with the maximum force. And in this match, Donald we weren't able to get him up into the jaw all the way, so we were biting way out at the tip, and the jaw had to close a long way before we could get him. So we weren't able to get full force down on him. And then the part that we bit right at the very beginning, he's probably the only person who uses AR-400 top armor, but he had 1/4 inch steel plate for top armor. And when we bit on the weapon, one tooth went right into a little hole that kind of caught him.
Wow.
But it was hit straight on frame with 2 vertical posts and a 1/4 inch plate top armor. We weren't getting through that. So the best we could do was hold him.
Yeah, and for the most part, it was working. You definitely were controlling the first half of the match, and he really couldn't do anything.
Yeah, he was crafty about it too, though, because once we get a hold of him, the plan was to take him to the screws, or the hammers was really where I was trying to get him so my kids could smash them with their hammers. That was the plan, but he didn't gun the throttle like I thought he would, where I could kind of just control it. He kind of laid off the throttle and let me push him, and then as I started to get close to stuff, he'd gun the throttle and just kind of steer me off to the side. So I was constantly trying to adjust, and he was constantly just keeping me that little bit away from the hazards. I was trying to get him the screws to take some of the tires off, and he just wouldn't let me get there. He had just enough grip to keep me from getting him to the hazards.
4-wheel drive, my man.
Yeah, he's got those big fat tires on there too, so they were getting plenty of grip. And if you watch the video, you can see where both of us are laying rubber on the BattleBots, trying to push each other around. So that was cool.
I will say, even though you lost, I thought this was the best that the Kraken has ever looked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a solid performance.
it finally started to look strong at the very end of the match. So I'm sure some of the other builders have talked on this as well, but there was like a major part shortage prior to the event, with events going on.
I believe this is our first time hearing about this. Like,
oh,
I think
really?
Ed
Okay.
Robinson alluded to this, but this is our first time hearing it in depth.
Yeah, so there was a major speed controller shortage. So everyone was trying to, bargain and barter for speed controllers. And what got us was the NPC motors that we used were actually out of stock.
Oh, no.
So I bought some up front, kind of as to get the ball rolling so we could start design. And then we were kind of holding back to see if, make sure we were fully accepted and see if we could work an NPC sponsorship deal out of things. We didn't order all the spares that we wanted. And when I went to order spares, they didn't have any left. So that left us with trying to scramble. And we actually bought 2 used motors. And one of the motors burnt out like a day before the event. It was running at half speed and it just wasn't running reliably. So we had NPC was on hand and they were able to overnight us a motor. So we threw that one in, the night before the event, the morning of the event. But we still had one used motor on the other side, on the right-hand side. And that motor ended up burning up during that match. And that's why we kind of turned away from when Donald was able to get a clean hit on the back. That right side drive just locked up. And we spun out of the side and gave Donald a free shot at us. Mm-hmm. So it was unfortunate. It was reliability issues that still ended up being our undoing, but at least it lasted till almost the end.
It was a solid match, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Both bots going back and forth, and unfortunately he got flipped over and essentially did the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think the head articulates. It's just the teeth.
Correct. Yep.
So, Leanne, what'd you guys think of the match?
I thought it was really good. I was stoked also for Kraken, seeing that you guys got everything started. Like, Matt and I talked a bit at competition, so he knows I'm a big fan of his solution on how to have, like, sort of a grabber like Mel. I thought it was a good match. Lots of green. And, just sort of a good one to watch. And Donald, he's been at it for a really long time, so having him go against, like, a newer guy, and obviously Matt holding his own is really rad. So,
how about you, Alex?
Same basically. It was sort of, we were all kind of sort of fixing our robot because we actually built just like Matt. We had 2 Valkyries. We built 2 of them, and so the weapon that we were going to put, we were basically like, if we got destroyed in a fight but still won, we could throw in another one in the next fight. And so we were trying to figure out what weapons and armor configuration we should put on to our second Valkyrie. So if we won the Hypothermia fight, we could face like either Kraken or Lockjaw. So we were kind of paying attention to that one. And it was a really great fight. We really loved it. Seeing Kraken really perform was really exciting and really literally get Donald Hudson in a pinch.
Yeah. So essentially, in the battle of Jaws versus the Kraken, the Jaws managed to take a bite out of the Kraken and managed to go on to the second round. And even though we showed highlights, it doesn't mean we can't talk about this match. Valkyrie versus Hypothermia.
Before we move on any further, I gotta say, poor Fuzzy. Like, he's had some really bad luck with spinners this year. First Whiplash, then Minotaur, and now you guys. It looked like a very entertaining fight, though. Walk us through it, Leanne and Alex.
Well, I know that one thing, Fuzzy held up real well. Like I was starting to wonder if we were going to actually be able to take even wheels off. I assumed that we were going to be able to eat them a lot easier than we did. I guess, what do you have to say, Alex? It's kind of self-explanatory.
We were kind of scared before the fight. Fred, who drives Valkyrie, because Fuzzy's been fighting Ray for years with Last Rites at Robo Games, so he knows how to fight a spinner. And so I would say I was pretty nervous going into this fight, and it was really fun. It was also really exciting to see Valkyrie perform. Like, we were excited. Like, our first fight didn't go so well because we had a lot of issues that we hadn't been able to debug pre-BattleBots. Then our second fight, it was like, oh my god, it works. And then our third, we were really able to see that, you know, Valkyrie was actually a really powerful bot, and we could take on someone like Fuzzy. Yeah, and the one of the things that Fuzzy said to us afterwards was like that bot hit a lot harder than I thought, and we were just like, yay, yeah.
I've always been a big fan of the undercutting flywheel designs. Essentially, this is an upscaled version of Foiled.
Yep. Yeah, actually, the story behind Valkyrie is my Antweight Foiled was the first prototype of it. Like, we came up with this idea for a BattleBot literally 2 years ago after Season 2 aired. Yep. Leanne, like, pulled me into her team. We sort of formed this team, and we were sketching out robot ideas, and we were like, oh, what if we did, like, this cool shape, made it sort of like jet fighter themed. And so I made Foiled as a 1 pound prototype of Valkyrie, and then we slowly scaled it up over the years.
Love the design, by the way. It looks like a stealth bomber or like a Valkyrie tiara.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always it looks really cool. Was there any like 3D printing work go into it?
Oh yeah, I guess about that part. Yeah, so yeah. I work for Mark Forge, which is a high-strength 3D printing company.
And one of our sponsors.
And yeah, one of our sponsors. And so we actually had about 50 printed parts on the robot.
Nice.
About 11 of them were 3D printed stainless steel, 17.4, and 39 of them were composites with carbon fiber or Kevlar reinforcement. And I have to say, like, the 3D printing really, really helped. Valkyrie, like, we were really, like, we were pushing going in for, like, we wanted to make a really pretty bot. We wanted to make it look awesome. And part of it was, like, we had this sort of sleek jet fighter design. And in order to do that, there were all these crazy, like, brackets and weird things in small spaces that would have been, like, frankly impossible to machine in the time frame that we had, because we only had a couple weeks to build the robot. So just being able to 3D print them, both like the metal parts and the composite parts, made our robot look a lot better, and meant we were able to build a lot faster because we could just have the strong parts that we needed printing while we were doing all the work on the bot. And so it really helped with the time frame and with the just making the robot work and look good and kick ass.
Yeah, and for the most part, it worked. Got a lot of. It really held up well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only had one part break during the entire event. I was really nervous, so I printed out a whole lot of spares of every single part. We had all these little brackets, like the things that hold. There are 2 pieces that hold the outer wheel guard onto the like main front panels, and they're printed. And I thought those were just going to go every match, so I printed out like a whole ton of them. But we only had one part break the entire match, and it was a composite part during the Lockjaw fight when we were upside down flopping around. We got hit on the bottom, and we have these dust covers that cover the speed holes in our base plate, and he just like nicked one of our dust covers, and it sort of got bent out of shape, and that was the only part that broke the entire time. So it really sort of held up and showed really how strong the parts were.
Nice. But yeah, you ended up getting the win over Hypothermia, and good for you, and you get to move on to the second round. Now, the other highlights of this fight was Gigabyte.
I am so mad they
versus
did not show this fight.
They have to show it in the Science Channel. Are you kidding me?
You know, as much as I hate one-hit KO matches,
This was not one hit.
Obviously, it wasn't a one-hitter, but I love a good squash when I see it. Like, just seeing a robot. This looks like it could have been Hypnodisc versus Robogeddon. Like, obviously this wasn't, in terms of destructive, it wasn't Ice Wave versus Vanquish, but it looked like Gigabyte just tore that Budweiser logo asunder.
And it's unfortunate. Double Dutch, they were actually 2-0 going into this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of their fights were shown on TV. A little disappointing, but... So, all I can say about this match is that Gigabyte just completely tore it apart. Both its weapons just completely flew off.
Oh, boy.
I would hate having to clean up that arena later.
Oh,
but, yeah.
dear.
Get
out the street sweeper.
I've always been a big fan of Gigabyte and Megabyte. This is like one of the most destructive designs in America today. It's just pieces flying everywhere. One of my favorite Megabyte matches is the one against the Judge, where it hits it right at the end and just completely tears it wide open. It's beautiful. But, yeah, there's not much else to say. Gigabyte just tore this thing apart. So, I guess we'll go back to the TV match. Or is there anything else to really say about this match, essentially?
Yeah, I'd add that there was it looks really bad in the highlights, but Double Dutch held his own for especially the beginning of the match. He wasn't backing down for Gigabyte. When this is shown on Science Channel, and I believe the plan is they're going to show all episodes on Science. This fight is, really showed Double Dutch was not intimidated by Gigabyte. He keeps feeding that bot into that spinner the entire match until he couldn't anymore, obviously, but he didn't give up on it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and yeah, Gigabyte essentially got the victory via murder, death, kill, and believe it or not, Gigabyte was my pick to win this Desperado tournament.
We'll get to that soon.
Oh, China.
Valkyrie was actually my pick to win the tournament, if you can believe it.
Yeah. I was backing you guys too a little bit. I just wasn't sure how this episode would go though. There was a lot of this episode was unpredictable. Like, yeah, I kind of thought Lockjaw would go out in the first round once I saw Kraken biting down into it.
I said, I could see Lockjaw getting to the second round, but, up against Valkyrie, considering that Don Hudson's been having issues with Lockjaw, I get the feeling that that Valkyrie could easily cause an upset and get through to the final, and if it meets Gigabyte, it's the perfect design to fight it, because it's an undercutting spinner, so it can expose Gigabyte's soft underbelly. But then we had the Lockjaw versus Valkyrie fight, and, I'll give you the floor.
Alex, Leanne.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess so part of why we built two robots, which Alex kind of inferred before. So firstly, their names are Brunhilde and Helga. Brunhilde is our main one. Helga was the one we rapid built. We were lucky we actually had two additional teammates available this weekend because my boyfriend and his best friend were visiting, and they are also both roboteers. They were going to be on the Honest Abe team in season 2. But yeah, so we had made the second robot literally as a sacrifice for Gigabyte, because we were pretty sure we were assuming that we were gonna just keep going, and that's who we'd be paired up against. But yeah, and then with Lockjaw, we just kind of kept watching how he was gonna have his configuration, because he also has a bit of modularity, and so we were kind of keeping a sharp eye out. We actually had one of Donald's teammates coming over asking us what specs we were gonna have on our robot, what armor we were gonna use, what our metal, what material it was. And Fred, our driver, he kept giving the guy wrong information. He said our spinner bar that you get to see break, which could have been I don't think it would have broken if it was aluminum. It would just bent. But he told him that was made out of aluminum. Mentioned that our panels on our robot were made out of something similar, just really weak steel or something. Just trying to make it so this guy was oh yeah, okay, yeah, we'll be fine. Go back to tell Donald all that, because we weren't anywhere near each other in the pit. Donald was sort of in the center of it and on the far side near the wall, and we were on the other side in the back. But yeah, it was It was a really hot day. We were game for doing like rapid multiple fights because we kind of designed our robot to be able to sort of NASCAR style, like disassemble it, put back together, or repair things.
We all had impact drivers with the correct bits installed, so we could just take off all the armor and put on a new set and like swap armor out because we had a couple different armor choices.
Yeah, and so we were kind of like hustling, ready to go, getting both ready because we figured that if we won, because we were hoping that we had maybe a little bit of an advantage because like actually Lockjaw's vertical spinner just doesn't have much reach. So because of our fancy stealth bombery style, he couldn't really reach us without like going straight into our weapon. So that's a good thing for us. And so we thought we may have had an advantage, but if we did win that, it was going to be like no time at all till the next fight, which you see Donald ends up like super sweating. And yeah, I don't know.
From what I understand, they gave you like very little repair time in between fights because this was very much a tournament of endurance.
Exactly, which like that for us was like a good thing because I like when I went about assembling my team, I ended up with all hardware engineers, so we all can do all of the things. We can take things apart, we can solder stuff, we can like any process that needs to be done with the robot to get it in working condition. Everyone on the team is completely capable of. And so that kind of like we knew we had that as an advantage going into it. And we were going to try to harp on that and also show, like we figured the worst case scenario, we were going to get a couple fights and we were going to be able to show we were a very competent team. And then the producers would hopefully like that for our eventual other fights and stuff. And they wouldn't be badgering us in between fights or whatever. So.
Now, if you had gone with the regular round flywheel, do you think the outcome could have been different?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So one thing that's pretty great so there's a couple of things. One thing that's nice is we bent Donald's wedge, and that is an impressive feat because the thing is chunky. But what happened with our bar design, we thought that by having like a big tombstone style slugger, we would be able to kind of knock out like an arm that he had on it and maybe have a chance on just like blowing off the wedge, obviously not just destroying it. And
also hitting the spinner on the side because we have more like a larger engagement as well.
Yeah. And so the one trick with that is despite us all being engineers, material science got the best of us. And so what happened was when we first made this bar, it was our one. The joke on this is actually it cost 3 times more than either of our weapon blades. So, but we basically got tool steel, like a 32-inch like length of it, and then welded like circular sort of balance guards underneath because we knew that there would be a decent like vibration and we'd probably hit ourselves with nothing there. And so what happened is before we sent it out for heat treat, we did the welding, and that just made the material properties super brittle all around where the welds were. It's when you do weld before heat treat stuff, you have to be really careful on like your gas flow and stuff. And we don't have the best welding facility in the area, and so you can't really have that control of an environment. And so we thought it would be fine. And you can clearly see that. We actually brought the weapon, like we brought our Spirit of Boston, our broken Spirit of Boston, to our viewing party this past Friday, in the 2 pieces that we had left, because we gave one of the 3 pieces that it broke into to Donald with him on it and stuff. But yeah, the other 2 we sort of brought over so we could like show people, and the engineers in the crowd, I think, like slightly appreciate it more because we do like, fracture analysis as a class when we take material science. So yeah.
And Valkyrie ended up doing the Red Sox jig at the end.
She was in the air so much. Like, that was just great. Like, I was not unhappy at all after this match. Like, I was like, well, oh well. But also, it was this hustle tournament. It wasn't like a, super serious, like, uber qualifying fight. Like, we knew that, like, we'd still fight after this. It wasn't the end all. The end. Like, it may be, like, we had one less chance of getting into the 16, but we did bring a pretty good show. And so that was, like, our main goal.
And also, it's like, like if we were gonna go out, like that was quite a way to go out.
It definitely made good television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always love it when spinners just get out of control like that. It's fun. It's fun just seeing them dance about the arena.
We actually basically because of that, because there was so much, like each of our weapons weighs about 67 pounds, and because of that oscillation, it was like an off-center 50-pound mass, and like we were using like whenever we'd assemble the robot, we'd use like red Loctite on everything, and like all of the bolts came loose, and we while we were like oscillating and dancing around, we actually like managed to hit Lockjaw on like all sides.
Yeah.
Like it was just like mayhem.
We did a good amount of damage apparently, just like in that, which I don't know, I kind of like the approach of like, hey, well, we just kind of messed ourselves up. How about we just go rabid dog style of just like be afraid to approach us?
Yeah.
Even if you lose a tooth, you can still try to gum him to death.
Yeah, and it really showed like our system, like apart from the blade breaking, our robot still held up incredibly well, which I was really surprised by.
We didn't have that much repair work to do besides removing like the broken bar when we were done.
Yeah, and the motor burnt. One of our motors burnt.
Yes, too. Yeah, we had a right motor. Was it?
I can't remember. Which one,
I'm trying to think like which I was, but yeah, and then also we had a sprocket.
Was that?
So that's what caused it to break down.
Yeah.
It was very minimal, like overall, like, you know, if we did like a cost analysis, I think the motor was the most expensive thing that we like lost.
Yeah, the three things that broke were the bar, like a magnet got removed from our drive motor or something, and that's why it failed, right? And then what was the third thing? Oh, the reason why our weapon stopped working was that the motor controller we were using went into like overheat mode, so it just shut down. Which meant it was like fine afterwards. Like we turned it on and it was just fine after the match, which we were all very happy for. That motor controller, it's a Kelly controller, and it held up so well. What else?
Well, we had the armor piece that right.
Oh yeah, we did have. Yeah, we had one thing you'll notice about Valkyries. Do you want to talk about this one?
Oh well, we have modular armor, and so one of the things we try to do is, depending on who we go against, we try to pick like the best configuration, and we have like a spreadsheet so we can like make sure which way works. Like so we never go overweight, and we decided to put like a side panel on so we could kind of use it as sort of like a brunt like shoulder if Donald did come at us with the spinner, and like, you know, he would just like got over our blade or whatever, but we'd be able to just kind of swing into him. And because it's made out of AR500, we figure like that's super strong. So we would have been able to potentially just completely stop it, or at least like protect ourselves, because we can pivot so easily around the center of our weapon.
Yeah, we put that like shoulder panel on the left side of the robot because our weapon spins counterclockwise. So we were hoping that we could, if we hit Lockjaw from the side, it would push him into that armor panel. And so we wanted to reinforce that side a little bit more than the other side because of the direction of spin.
And unfortunately, it did mean Valkyrie goes out. But it was fun to watch, I will say.
Yeah. Matt, you've been patient. What were your thoughts on this fight?
I was really excited. I was excited going in. I was rooting for the Valkyrie team. We were kind of at a torn spot because we talked to Donald a lot prior to our match and given Donald rides from the hotel to the venue. And he's a cool guy, so we were rooting for him as well. But really wanted to see the Valkyrie team. We're rooting for the underdogs, the new teams, to kind of come out and really show what they can do. And I thought they did great. I mean, their match against Hypothermia was fantastic, and then they came back against Lockjaw and beat the crap out of that robot. So that was great to see as well.
Yeah. And so Lockjaw eventually ends up winning the match, and so we move on to the other second match, and oh, poor Gigabyte.
Okay, who saw this coming? That's all I have to ask. Like, who would think that this fight would end up the way it did?
Well, we weren't planning for it, but we also were more planning to lose, so there's that.
The story of the the tournament is everybody needs to take a welding class because we broke out the welds and Gigabyte broke out the welds.
Yeah.
And that's the second time that pipe thing on the top is broken. It broke against Tombstone, and then it breaks again here. Oh dear. I will say though, it does show what Gigabyte and Megabyte are really good at, and that's being a giant top, just spinning around up on its little point there.
That was absolutely bedazzling when it tried to self-right.
Better upside down, actually. I think they should run it like that next year.
Oh my god, that light show they gave us.
Yeah.
I think they should have just kept the match going, because I remember the one match with Megabyte where they just were spending the entire minutes just flailing around on the pipe.
I feel that the reason they stopped it was because there was no easy way to control it when it's up like that, if that makes any sense.
So then again, when has Gigabyte ever been complete controlled?
When it's on its wheels.
Yeah, it's always fun.
This was amazing. Just one flip from Lucky was all it took.
It was a lucky flip.
Well, no. Well, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. See what I did there?
Yeah, so this was really funny. Matt, you want to give your thoughts on this match? If you want to call it a match.
Yeah, I don't... Again, I wasn't really thinking Gigabyte was going to run away with this one. You know, Lucky was right behind us, so we were able to kind of see what they were doing. And they were, you know, they had that big, beefy titanium wedge. Yeah, they had a lot of...
mint chocolate chip wedge.
Yeah, and so, you know, it wasn't going to be easy for Gigabyte. You know, it's a four-wheel drive robot, long wheelbase, so it's really stable to drive. And as long as you can keep that big beefy wedge pointed towards them, I felt they had a chance. And as long as the wedge stayed on, that's a key push as well. The concern that they had going in really was that they had taken a lot of damage in their Gemini match, and they had to tear down their robot. And they had, I think they had like a speed controller that ended up getting shorted out or something as well near the end. So they had a ton of work to do, so they were scrambling to get everything ready just to get the robot built for that match. But the robots themselves, those wedges kind of seem to have an advantage against the full-body spinners. You saw that in the Petunia match as well, against Captain Shredderator. And, you know, a nice wedge, it has an advantage against them full-body spinners. It's just the way it works out.
Well, as we say on this podcast, never underestimate the powers of a... wedge.
And from what I understand here, this tournament was really in a rush, so the Lucky team only had about 20 minutes to fix their bot and
I thought it was 30.
Fill up their tank, and I think they said they only were able to get maybe 2 or 3 flips in with the flipper, weren't they?
So the whole tournament was filled in one day. The first matches were filmed in the first session, which was 1 to 4 o'clock. And then the second session was 7 to 10. So they had a gap between the first and second sessions where they were able to make a lot of repairs. But between the second and third fight, there was no time. There was time to go out, fill the air tank up, do any minor repairs that you could have to do, and swap batteries, and that was it. Between the second and third match. So if you made it to the finals, you were going with, you know, a robot that was already beat up and the best that you could cobble together in that little bit of time.
It's tricky, and it's a shame to see Gigabyte just go out like that. But sometimes it's just either a good flip or a good hit that is enough to take him out. So. Leanne, any thoughts on this match?
Well, I didn't get to see it because of the whole, like, us being busy with that. But we had to, you know, wait, and, like, I don't know if you heard, like, there was a long, stupid process with taking batteries out after matches every time, so I think that's, like, where we were, like, we had someone had to stay with the robot and stuff. And so I didn't get to see it when it happened, but being able to watch it now, I was really excited to see Lucky do well. Full body spinners terrify me just in general because like you're in trouble if you're near one without a cage. But I just really like Lucky. Like I like the people on that team a lot. I like the robot a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I was pretty stoked that that's how it went, even though that's not what I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. Alex, anything left to say?
No, everyone already said it all. But yeah, again, it was like we were out back, so we were kind of like we had just come out of the Lockjaw fight, and they were fighting. And I think you actually see in the video, like Fred like runs up to Donald Hudson and you're fighting Lucky, and he's like, okay. So yeah, it was like it all happened really quickly because basically if you won that second round, you were just like, there was maybe like 1 or 2 fights. Yep. And then you had to go, there were like 1 or 2 filler fights of just like other contenders. I can't remember who they were, if they showed them, but then you were just thrown right back into the finals, and that was the last fight of the night.
Mm-hmm. Segment also featured a cameo from hardcore podcast guest Tommy Brewster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Gigabyte ends up going out. Lucky goes through to the final of the tournament. And before we move on to the tournament final, we almost forgot. We got 2 bonus fights to talk about from the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, not really much to say. We had Double Jeopardy, or as my mom says, that's a stupid robot.
Double Jeopardy and Mecha Rampage. This match featured one of my favorite epic fail moments of all time, where Double Jeopardy fires the round and it hits Mecha Rampage's blade. It actually broke the blade. Because you see how it's vibrating at the end? It actually took out an entire tooth on Mecha Rampage's blade. So the round does work. It just, once you use it, you can't really do anything with it. But the round hits Mecha Rampage's blade, it ricochets back, and it whacks right into Double Jeopardy. It was so awesome to see. It's also funny. It's also good that Mecha Rampage also had the giant bullseye on top of it. So it was really funny to see. But yeah, Double Jeopardy, I like how they're utilizing the projectile rule now, but yeah, they really need to figure out how to just
retract it,
because once you get rid of the round, there's not really much else the robot can do.
It doesn't even have like a wedge that's flush to the floor, and it just got its it pretty much what's the word I'm looking for?
It's pretty much just
Mecha Rampage swabbed the deck with that cannon.
Yeah, and Double Jeopardy lost its wheels, just completely fell apart. It was sad to watch.
Speaking of projectiles, Axe Backwards versus Ultimo Destructo.
Yeah, basically, this was 2 bonus fights that had projectiles. The Double Jeopardy one had the round, and Ultimo Destructo had fireworks.
Hey,
it was like this was almost as wacky as when Zoe 101 had the laser and Spaced had the Molotov, but it was really funny to see.
Oh my god!
Ultimo Destructo. This is the same guys who built Techno Destructo in the original BattleBots.
I saw the video of this on YouTube, and a lot of people really don't like Ultimo Destructo.
I don't know why. Because. This is they've taken the Mike Jeffries gimmick of having interchangeable weapons. Like when they fought Valkyrie, they had I think they had the horizontal. They had the horizontal blade. They had the tombstone blade.
They were going to go with their vertical, but they had a motor controller issue, so they had to swap to the horizontal last minute before they fought us. That was our very first fight.
Yeah. Nervous. Sean was sweating going into it, and I was like really confident that we were gonna like take them apart. And then we had issues. So
and then it had another fight. Who was it against? doubled
parallax.
parallax, and
it used the flipper.
Flipped it upside down, and they didn't really show any other highlights aside from that. So, but they got the win, and they went 2-0 going into this fight, and this one, aside from the fireworks, they armed themselves with this goofy looking beta style axe.
It did not look very effective.
No, if I was Ultimo Destructo, I
like,
probably would have gone with like the Tombstone blade.
It's like looks more like it was the BumbleBot axe from Robot Wars.
Well, one of the things with the Tombstone blade, the horizontal spinner, they actually, so while we did lose against them, they had to rebuild some of their whole weapon system. Like their belts weren't able to stay tight because they kept having their motor mount like rip up. And so that's probably why they didn't use it for this, like, because obviously time gets kind of wishy-washy, but I'm pretty sure, like, the main reason was he was having a heck of a time, like, getting a new part built to be able to remount his motors in. So they decided to focus on, like, some, their other modular weapons that they could get there in time.
Yeah.
God bless both teams. This match wasn't very good.
Yeah, Axe Backwards just kept hitting Ultimo Destructo, almost said Techno Destructor, and it just died.
Yeah, it lost a wheel at some point. There was a lot of ramming. And then Ultimo Destructo just broke down.
Just be thankful they didn't film this in New Jersey, because if they did, that Roboteer would be arrested for illegal fireworks.
Yeah.
It was cool though, both with Ultimo Destructo's fight and with the Double Jeopardy fight. Like, all the builders were just really excited because somebody decided, like one of us was crazy enough to build a projectile, right? So we were all like really watching like the Double Jeopardy. We were all just so amazed by, because they literally brought a cannon to BattleBots, and that's just like cool enough in its own right. They're a team of lawyers too. They're not engineers. They just built a robot. They built a cannon, and it was amazing. Like both times they hit hit their target. So we felt like they were 2-2 because they shot twice and hit their targets twice. And with Ultimo as well, just like everyone was ecstatic about the fireworks because they were just so fun.
Yeah. But that's really all we can say about the bonus fights. But they were what's a good word for it? A good spectacle.
Yeah.
They were a blast. That's the word I'm looking for. They were a blast. So yeah, main event was Lockjaw versus Lucky.
This was a good match.
Yeah, I actually had Lucky to win this, and they were able to get a good flip in on Lockjaw. And
well, what did I say at the beginning of the show, Brandon? You can't outdrive Don Hudson.
Yeah, and I think one thing I noticed is Lockjaw's weapon reversible, because it kind of looked like they were able to get underneath and get some hits in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the essential. I think that's something that every drum spinner should have, is a reversible spinner. Like Mondo Bizarro has a drum where the speed controller is reversible, so you can actually spin it in the other direction if it goes upside down. There was a drum spinner a while. I think Toro Maximus is reversible too. I think, isn't it?
Is it?
I don't know. I don't know. I did still manage to get a few hits when it was upside down, I think. I don't know. But, this match was mostly Lockjaw. Like, Lucky really wasn't able to get underneath Lockjaw.
Lockjaw got some good hits in.
Yeah, got some good hits. And then, you know what one of my most hated rules of all time is? The 50% immobilization rule, where if you lose drive in one of your wheels and you're stuck going around in circles... Oh, hi, phone. And you're stuck going around in circles, and even though you're moving, apparently it's not controlled movement, so they're still going to count you out. That was my most hated rule in Robot Wars. Now BattleBots is using it.
I think it counts as controlled if it's like you move more than a robot radius around, so you're not just spinning in circles, but you can go a bit more. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like for example with Valkyrie, if we lose one drive side, we can still move a large amount with the weapon and just one wheel. And I think that's like, it's like this weird nebulous area where it's like you're not just spinning in circles if one drive is working, but you manage to like go more than a robot diameter or robot radius out. Like you can, that still counts as mobilization.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, after the fight, Lucky was still able to get back to its square.
Matt, what are your thoughts on the one-wheel immobilization rule or what have you?
Yeah, it's right in line with what Alex said was, you have to be able to show that you can still attack your opponent, right? And Lucky wasn't able to do that. He was trying to keep his wedge square to Lockjaw, but he wasn't making any effort to engage. And so at that point, they don't want to let the match go another 30 seconds with both robots just staring at each other until it gets the judge's decision. So they're going to start the count.
Yeah. But it's unfortunate. But Lockjaw ended up getting the victory, and Don Hudson gets the giant bolt to go with his 6 other nuts. And I gotta say this. Is it me, or does the giant bolt look a lot cooler than the giant nut?
I thought the same thing. I thought that should be the trophy for BattleBots. I'm guessing that it's not because of tradition, but even so, now it just makes me wonder, can you fit a giant nut on that bolt?
Yeah, you can. Tombstone Ray Billings actually did.
Exactly.
Oh my god. Well, looks like I think I know what Don Hudson's doing with that trophy. I'm just disappointed that nobody kissed it.
Yeah, when the Eagles were kissing the Super Bowl trophy, and then you see all fingerprints and kiss marks all over it. Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that thing is it's literally like the BattleBots version of the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, that was the deciding factor for us entering the Desperado. We were on the fence, and then they said, well, you get a giant bolt at the end. And it was like, well, we're in.
Perfect.
Yeah, what our I was talking with Brooks, one of our other teammates, like before the Desperado tournament, and I was like, if we win, we have a much higher chance of getting a Valkyrie Hexbug toy.
Yay! I would buy it.
I'd buy it too.
That was like one of my deciding things of like this will just like keep pushing for it, because like one of the things was like we really wanted to design a really pretty robot, so and like partially like on the side maybe make it like toyable, because we have all the modular armor panels, so they work well with like the magnet snap off panels on Hexbug, so we're secretly hoping that that's a thing. We actually designed, Leanne designed a small version of Valkyrie already. So,
hey, I'd love to see it.
All right.
Maybe you can sell them.
But yeah, so we pretty much give our thoughts. Matt, what did you think of this fight? Like, for the final battle?
I thought it was pretty clear from the opening impact that Lockjaw was going to end up taking this. He was the lower wedge, and once he was able to slip under that front wedge of Lucky, I didn't have a lot of faith that Lucky was going to be able to get back into it. He did get a nice flip in later in the match, and I thought maybe it was going to turn at that point, but Donald, he's a great driver. He was able to take advantage of it and get under it. It was pretty clear early on that Donald was going to have the advantage there.
Yep, and Don Hudson ended up getting the win by kinda sorta knockout. Gets the giant bolt, and now he's got a space in the top 16. And I'm happy because I've been very disappointed with Lockjaw throughout the season. It's always seemed to have such.
It's a showcase. Like, his run is a showcase of what Don Hudson is capable of, both as an engineer and a driver.
Yeah, and this is one of the best performances I've seen by him since the heyday of Dissector. He's a great driver. Probably he's a good candidate for best driver in this season, I think.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be between him and J-Mo when it comes down to it.
Oh yes, that's gonna be tricky.
Don't count out the Vasquez boys.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah. We're not gonna have Matt Vasquez on this podcast.
Yeah, we'll have him on soon. We were going to have him on for when we reviewed the Zoe 101 episode that had his dad's bots on it, a.k.a. Logan Bot and Edgy Rake, as Ryan Beaver calls it. But, yeah, so that pretty much sums up the Desperado tournament. On a scale of 1 to 10, there were some upsets. Some kind of disappointed me, because I really wanted to see... I would have loved to see Valkyrie and Gigabyte in the final. Mm-hmm. God bless you guys, but I really would have loved to see that. And I think if the Science Channel does air those 2 highlighted matches in full, or if they upload them to YouTube, which is another possibility, I might give a higher rating. But for now, I'll give it an 8.
Really? Because I'm gonna go 1 point above. I am gonna give this one a 9. All the fights that we saw were excellent. There were some great shocking moments, some fun moments as well. Even if the final was a bit on the anticlimactic side, I felt great for Don Hudson. Like, this was finally his moment to prove himself, and even if he doesn't get the giant nut, he's at least got something to put his old... Oh god, no, I'm not going there.
Oh, dear lord. I'm sure. If he shows his nuts with his giant bolts, I'm just gonna stick a Brazzers logo right on the picture. And now Nate has died. So, Leanne, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank this episode?
Well, obviously, because of I would say that the recording of the episode and being there and that weekend in general, I would give obviously a rating of a 10 out of 10 because it was just great. It was exhausting but very satisfying. The actual episode, I'm going to totally knock it down a peg though because they didn't show our full fights. Well, yeah, I think I'll go with an 8 also.
Alex.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm excited for the Science Channel fight because I think they're going to show all the fights. It was a great experience, so I definitely give it like how I describe it is like because we were a new robot, we learned something about Valkyrie every time we fought, and so every fight got better and better. So it was so exciting to just like have all those fights all in one day, and so I'd definitely give the whole experience like a 10 out of 10 because it was just so fun to see Valkyrie like in all her glory. And then the episode, I feel like I'll hold my judgment until the Science Channel one because I'm hoping they'll show our full Hypothermia fight, which is really fun.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Captain Spurk?
Yeah, I'm with the other guys. I was a 10 out of 10 just being there, the experience. We were super happy to just be able to show that our robot actually worked and could do things. It did the thing, which is a little bit disappointing. But, the episode itself, I'm going to give it an 8 as well. It needed more upset. Like if the 8 seed had happened to take out the 1 seed in the first fight, that would have been probably made it a couple points higher.
Oh, you're just being bitter.
Come on.
No, it was a great episode though. It was really great. Mm-hmm. And I think what this episode starts, we're starting the second half of the season now, and some of the matches and some of the episodes that are coming up down the road, it shows the robots are all starting to get tuned in and getting dialed in a little bit. And I'm really excited for everyone to see the second half of the season because it's all of the robots, not just our 2 machines are starting to perform, but everyone's machines are starting to perform. So the damage goes up and the reliability goes up, and there's some huge upsets and some huge, just some gourmet damage coming up, and huge as well. So there's just some super. This season is going to be the best season. I'm going to say right now, and I might be a little bit partial because I'm in this one, but it's going to be the best season of BattleBots ever. Hands down. It's not even going to be close.
We won't disagree with you there, man.
I'd argue it's the best season of any robot combat show.
Better than season 10 of Robot Wars?
There were a couple episodes that I thought were kind of eh.
Yeah.
But this season's been solid so far. Speaking of Robot Wars, the Science Channel has now picked it up, which means we're going to have 2 robot combat shows on the Science Channel. What do you think about that, guys?
I'm excited. I'm not going to be able to sleep on Wednesdays, though, because that's when they're supposed to air the Robot Wars right after Science Channel. So it'll be a late night, but I'm excited.
My concern is that some of our wonderful friends and pals that are on season 3 with us are part of Robot Wars as well. And so I think for any new Metal Carnage robot fans are going to get confused of what's going on and just like mix up the shows. I hope that's not the case, but I don't know. That's my gut feel at the moment. I mean, I usually watch it anyways. Like I had for the longest time, I've had like VPN for like a UK like TV access. So I've kind of caught. I've watched Robot Wars on and off the last few years before they got canceled. So yeah, it's nice that they're going to be putting it on, but I almost wish like they should have like paced it a little bit better because we still have like a couple of months of this season. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like it's great that they have it, but it's a little weird that it's like being shown at the same time as BattleBots. Like I would have thought that they'd show it after BattleBots is over, like in between like this season and hopefully season 4. Because I think people will get confused, especially when you have robots like Huge and like Gabriel, and you have builders that are on both, and it's with similar robots, and so it just gets. I think it may just get a little bit confusing, but I'm excited that like there is more momentum for robot fighting television shows in the United States.
Well, it consistently finishes in the top 10 in the Nielsen ratings every Friday night. So
yeah. One thing I've noticed, and unfortunately I think I'm going to have to private all the episodes of the new Robot Wars reboot I did because of the Science Channel. But one thing I've noticed, I've gotten so many comments saying, oh, this is a ripoff of BattleBots, or Boobstone would totally beat them. I'm like, oh boy.
That's all right. That's so typical. Like that's another thing is like BattleBots and Robot Wars are very different things. Like even just from like on the engineered like supply chain side. Like what you can have legally in the UK is very different from what we allow in good old USA. Yeah. So
and it's also the strategy is totally different between the shows.
Also, like, LOL, House Robots,
yeah,
like,
like Robot Wars, there's so much more of a focus on driving ability because you have to avoid all of the hazards. There's the House Robots, there's like the pit and like all of these different things that could like happen at any moment. So you have to be like really on top of your driving, whereas BattleBots is much more about the weapon systems. Like Valkyrie, for example, is like very, very difficult to drive. We have like we sort of suggest directions for it to go, and it may choose to go in those directions. It may not. That's because the bottom of the weapon there's a skid pad, and that's our point of contact with the ground, and that's spinning against the ground at at 2,000 RPM. So we have this like always rotating force, and we're also trying to drive. So like the playing field would be very different in Robot Wars because the balance of armor and weaponry and drive power is different because of the hazards and because of the way the matches are set up. Also in Robot Wars, there's like more often there are like rumbles and like 1v1v1s. So there are more protected wheels, whereas because BattleBots is usually just 1v1, like exposed wheels are like more okay because you only have to worry about one competitor.
Right.
I have noticed people have actually been comparing foiled to PP3D.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah. We've gotten that a lot with Valkyrie. It's like it's interesting because they're like there's like usually been one type of horizontal spinner, and that's been like the tombstone shape.
Yep.
And now we've started to see more of the like wide stance PP3D-esque. Valkyrie is evolved from a line of like smaller foiled and foiled again and everything.
Yeah, I think like the PP3D thing I always get grumpy with because like I guess you only have a certain set of array of weapons to choose, and so like when people compare like, oh yeah, here's a robot that used a weapon like yours, but there's nothing else in common, and it's just like very cool. Like we're already talking about like different color strategy for next time we run Valkyrie, but like I'm like, yeah, well I guess maybe we don't want to do all black because maybe that's where the tie-in is coming from.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all the time we've got right now. But I will say this was a fun episode. It was great having all you guys on here with us.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for asking.
It's all good. But yeah, next week we have episode 12, and we don't know the card just yet, but hopefully we'll get to see some more awesome matches.
Mm-hmm. You know, Alex the Hunted usually says that the middle point of like Robot Wars or Robot Combat shows are technically the lull period, but this is not the case for season 3. It's only gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we've gotten a glimpse of the next couple cards, and they're awesome. Super
Oh boy.
excited.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that pretty much covers it.
So, guess it's time to sign off then.
Yep. Until next time, I'm the Hardcore Kid.
I'm Otaku Nate.
I guess I'm Leanne Cushing.
And
Cushing.
yep. I'm Alex Crease.
And I'm Matt Spurk.
Alex, usually we do like a what the heck is it? A bumper joke at the end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you please say she's up to speed now, boys?
Should I say it, or Leanne, you want to say it?
Alex, you say it, because PP3D comparison.
All right. She's up to speed now, boys.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's it.